Hello and welcome to another episode of Literary Liberation Podcast. Today we will be discussing, analyzing, and reviewing Jeanette McCurdy's debut novel, Half His Age. For more content outside of the podcast, please check out our Instagram and TikTok at Literary Liberation and Twitter at Twitter at LitLib Podcast. I'm your co-host Mariah, and you can find me at Hungry Riot on all social media platforms.
And I'm your co-host Kristen. You can find me at 10CBR on all social media platforms.
And we are currently fundraising for the Northern Gaza Water Fund. That will be listed at the top of the description on YouTube and Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening. That's where it's going to be at. So if you have a couple bucks to throw their way, that would be really cool.
Yes. So, getting into Half His Age by Jeanette McCurdy. This is her newest release. It just came out, as of us recording this less than 2 weeks ago, I think, or maybe 2 weeks ago-ish. It's very recently out, so we're, right on this train. And Mariah and I both have read I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy in the past. I don't know. I read it whenever it came out years and years ago. I'm not sure when you read it.
I read it last year, I think. I was going through a phase where I was trying to read celebrity memoirs, and that one is one of the biggest ones that people were recommending. So I finally got around to reading it. And then also that show, Silent on Set, I think was coming out. So it kind of worked out. But I didn't watch the show. I just read the book.
Either. Yeah, but we both thoroughly enjoyed Jeanette McCurdy's memoir. As a celebrity memoir. It was a really great one, really insightful. And I would highly recommend that memoir too. I feel like with the memoir she has discussed, if you haven't read her memoir, I don't know if she wasn't groomed by her teacher, but she was freshly 18 and she was in a relationship with a much older man at some point in her life, and so this is a big reflection, I think, on that for her.
Anyone that's read the book knows it, and I think it's very apparent that that's what she's working through. She also admitted it in one of the interviews I saw with the New York Times, which will be linked if you want to read through it or listen to it. It's a 45-minute long interview, but she did say it was inspired by her own relationship dynamic, not necessarily all of the details, but just that existing. But she also wove in rage and power and kind of just want to do a social commentary on that, which I thought she did very successfully with this book.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed this one. I feel like we're gonna have to get this out of the way now too. If you don't know what this book is about, this is about a young girl named Waldo. She's 17. It's her senior year of high school. And she's kind of has a not so present mother in her life. She's always been on her own. She's raised she's raised in a trailer park at some point, but then her mom eventually gets an apartment, so she's very lower class. And then she ends up getting groomed by her high school English teacher. And then you kind of watch her navigate her senior year throughout the story.
Yes, and it's very similar to My Dark Vanessa, so if you like that type of a story, we're going to discuss a lot more of the details and parallels between the two, so we'll wait until we get into the more spoiler area. I haven't talked to Kristen since Kristen finished this. I finished this book a month ago because I got an advanced listener copy through Libro FM. Thank you for approving that, by the way. I enjoyed it. It does read very similar to, you can tell it's Jeanette McCurdy's writing style. Also, she narrated the book, so it felt very similar to her memoir. So if you enjoy the way the memoir is written, I think you will like this. If you like My Dark Vanessa, I think you'll like this. I liked it a little bit less than My Dark Vanessa, but it's good. I gave it 4 stars.
I think I gave it about 4 stars as well. I do agree that I think My Dark Vanessa is a little bit stronger within its social commentary, where this almost feels like it's almost like a precursor to My Dark Vanessa, where I think My Dark Vanessa does a much better job at going into the victimhood and how there's no perfect victim in society and nobody's going to be exactly what you want, how they feel. I think it in that aspect it works better for me because I think that commentary is much more needed in society and more relevant to the way society views like these types of things that happen. But I do think, like, again, like, I do think this is a really well written book. It's very punchy, like, it reads very quick. I'm not sure how the audiobook was because I didn't listen to it. I read the physical book. I mean, there are some chapters that were only like a paragraph long. Like, it's such a quick, short read. Like, it feels like diary entries in a way, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I didn't know how the book was going to be structured because I did listen to it, but it is very quick.
Yeah, you said the audiobook is only like what, like 4 or 5 hours, right?
Yes, it was only, I think it came in at like 4, and then Jeanette McCurdy reads quite quickly, so I listened to it at about a 1.5 or 1.75 times speed, so I finished it within 2 or 3 hours real time. It's a very, very quick. And I mean, I thought it was a good like audiobook. I wish I need to go buy a physical copy of this because I'm very curious how it looks.
I have my
Because the
physical
cover of
copy, but it's
it
not here.
is divine. I love the cover of this book. I think it was beautifully done. I think it kind of encapsulates kind of how uncomfortable a lot of the content of this book was. Um,
Yes. This book is very graphic, like extremely graphic. I'd argue it's more graphic than My Dark Vanessa is. Even though My Dark Vanessa does still
This
have,
almost has like a body horror element. And
yeah.
based on like the reviews, right? It has a 3.5-star average right now with 34,000 ratings, which is, I would say, quite a lot for it only being out for a little while.
Yeah.
I think people, I don't know, it's kind of seems flippant. The majority of people are rating it like 4 stars, and I'm wondering if it's either like the style of the writing or maybe the content, people weren't expecting it to be as graphic. I think is interesting.
I don't know, because I imagine the people that are reading this are people that were fans of her memoir, right? Like, Jenna McCurdy is not necessarily like an established author yet. And to be honest, on Goodreads, I don't think 3.5 is a very high rating for like the quote unquote good books, you know? But it does have a lot more like critical ratings, which I imagine maybe more. I wasn't really in like the bookish sphere whenever like My Dark Vanessa released either. So I wonder if this will age better too, because the way that we're at in like society is almost so Puritan still, especially like in the United States with the rise of fascism and the way that the right wing is leading everything, that this is like a slap in the face to like the Puritan ideals that like America is trying to have again or whatever. And so I wonder if
Yes, I
that
know. It's interesting you say that because, like, right now, the time that we're filming this is September. Oh my God, it's Sunday, February 8th.
the Super
There's a
Bowl.
clip. It's Super Bowl Sunday, but there's also like this clip of Northern Lion complaining about how like puritanical like Gen Z is, and I'm wondering if that is reflective of the ratings in this.
Well, because it would make sense that a lot of Jeanette McCurdy's fans are Gen Z because they grew up watching like Nickelodeon and stuff like that. I mean, I don't know if you watch like iCarly or anything like
Oh, I
that,
was an
really.
avid consumer. I didn't watch the Cat and Sam show
I
because
didn't
I was
watch
just
that
a little bit
either.
too
I was too
older
old for
by the
that.
time that came out. I was so into. I loved Sam's character. I loved all of her funky shirts that she wore, and I mean, I really liked iCarly.
Yeah, I mean, like, I was a big fan of iCarly as well. I mean, like, I remember, like, Miranda Cosgrove and Drake and Josh and stuff like that. And I don't know. I think this is such a heavy topic, too, that I feel like, though, like, society doesn't really talk about this as much. Like, I think millennials had that big, like, Me Too movement and stuff like that. And that was shining a light on a lot of, like, the assault that women experience in everyday spaces and in Hollywood specifically and stuff like that versus we like Gen Z doesn't really have that necessarily. It's a lot like push it down, ignore it, you know?
Yeah, and I think I mean we're kind of at a point where we have to talk about spoilers. But I guess before, do you recommend this book?
I would say more depends on the type of reader you are. I would not recommend this over like My Dark Vanessa, but I do think like if you're in that realm of reading like Lolita and like My Dark Vanessa, that this I think could be better for a younger audience in a way, even though it is so graphic, but because of the way Waldo's naivety comes through, I think it feels almost more realistic. Like I feel like you could see yourself more in her, like see her choices clearer versus in other books. I feel like in My Dark Vanessa, I don't remember what her name is. Is it Vanessa?
Yeah.
Oh, it's been a year since we read it, so but like I feel like her character, like the way she's a more frustrating character than Waldo is as a character, if that makes any sense. Not saying
Yeah.
Waldo isn't completely frustrating, but I don't know, maybe it's because I'm Gen Z, I can see like rationalities for why she is and how you can see how young she is, and it makes more sense. I don't know if that's
Yeah,
coming out
I
correctly.
also think like I think teenagers should read this. This is my hot take. I
Yeah.
despite the graphic content, I think this is a perfect book for like the older the older Gen Alpha and then like the younger Gen Z. Because there is
Mhm.
like Gen Z that are like more like my age that I think you're going to resonate a lot more with. My Dark Vanessa, just because of like the content that is in here. I mean, it's exploring like hyperconsumerism and the beauty industry. There's a lot about mommy issues, which I don't think mommy issues were as big of a deal with the millennial or zillennials as it is with Gen Z. I think it's really interesting that she encapsulates that in here. I mean, it makes sense with her memoir
Yeah,
and her life.
her choices.
And then also like the dynamic of the age gap relationship with her and her age and some like figures we've seen online that I'm going to talk about Rach and Tom Sullivan later on because I think it's relevant to this. I don't know if Kristen knows about this, but whenever
I don't
you're
know who those people
prepared, you're
are.
ready. Oh my god. Okay, I can spill all of the drama about
Okay.
that if you I think we could start with age gap relationship ethos because
Mhm.
I think that has been a big conversation in feminist circles for a very long time. Like what is the correct age, like our age gaps, how do you address this in what dynamic? Obviously we have Kristen's heartthrob is a prime example of an age gap relationship that is constantly criticized. What's his
Who are we
name?
talking about?
Craven.
Oh, Aaron Taylor Johnson. He plays as
Yeah.
Craven the Hunter. That's like the worst movie to reference for him. What the hell? That's the movie
You're
you
welcome.
think of when you think of Aaron Taylor Johnson?
Off the top of my head, yeah.
Okay. And Mariah hasn't even seen that movie, so. And also, bold choice to say my heartthrob for Aaron Taylor Johnson. I don't even think I like him that much.
That's a lie. Anyways, he's in
I
an
like other
age
people
gap
way more.
relationship. In an age gap relationship with a woman that is significantly older than him. And it's often talked about and joked about. And I think when it's the opposite way around, it's
It,
treated very differently, obviously.
mm-hmm.
Like,
It's
but
a well because I do think whenever it is societally, like whenever a woman preys on a younger boy, which does happen, whether or not like if people want to admit it or not, it does happen. Like women can still be abusers. That's not like something that goes away based on your gender. But I think whenever it does happen, because of the way that maturity is sent like shown in the patriarchy, I think that has a huge effect on how people view different relationships. Like whenever Aaron Taylor Johnson was getting preyed on by older women, he's viewed as being more mature than like your average man or more grown up, blah blah blah. And that is why I think a lot of the times younger women specifically are more interested in older men is because the way that you're forced to mature as a young woman in society is so much faster than it is being a man in society because of the way that our society is, right?
patriarchy and its consequences. Like this is like a
Yeah.
long developing like historical events that have taken place, different means of socialization of the youth. I mean, it's pretty well known that like young girls used to get married off for the purposes of forming bonds with people around them, and like their familial bonds, and like sharing land. There's a lot of historical examples of that. And just in general, the youthful, like I can't remember what it's called. I think it's in the book. Shit, I think it's in Playing the Whore. There's like a whole thing about like how like virtue and womanhood, and that's just not equally attributed to men. It's kind of men are in like the bioessentialist mindset are treated like, oh, this is men just act this way and they do these things. So they kind of just, it's just like a man being a man without acknowledging like
Boys will
the
be
socialization
boys.
that's been happening. Yeah. And I do think it's interesting that we don't have nearly as many examples outside of like Aaron Taylor Johnson. That's his name. Did
Yeah.
I say it right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then like the other one that I can think of where obviously like, he was like legal is the Mary Kay Letourneau. I think that's how you say it. She was the teacher that got charged with second-degree statutory rape of her student, got pregnant by her 13-year-old student. I think he was 13.
Yeah. And then she
and
got
that was
sentenced
a big
to prison.
deal. Yeah, and then they ended up getting married afterwards, which is like a whole thing. And then a more contemporary example that I think more people are going to be familiar if you're listening to this. I imagine you like this. You're Gen Z. Maybe you remember Rachel Sullivan. Tom Sullivan used to post online cooking recipes for his pregnant wife. It was a big deal. He used to post all these little recipes like cooking things for my pregnant wife, and then she would eat it. Come to find out, Tom Sullivan and her have an age gap, right? They got together when she was 19. He was 25. Also, later we find out actually he was a teacher at her high school and a coach. Her coach hypothetically may have known her since she was 14 years old.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. A lot of this is alleged. And it sparked a lot of controversy when it did end up coming out. Like, there's deep dives online. And I just think it's interesting how similar that kind of reflects some of Waldo's experiences throughout this book, because that's like what I thought about. Obviously, I didn't get groomed by a teacher.
Me neither,
I can't bring that to the table. I'm sorry. That would be very
too bad
and traumatic. But I just don't have that experience. Did I get groomed by older men? Yeah, absolutely. But not not my teacher. And I do think it's just grooming and age gap relationships. How are we gonna move on as a society, aside from the obvious of achieving a communist society where we are deconstructing the patriarchy and kind of evaluating human sexuality and attraction, and also understanding how the brain matures and making sure people are not exploited outside of the economic sense.
Well, what is interesting, because like I was gonna say, because like we know that like there's recently been, I don't know how much I can say about this online, but there's recently been some documents released from, I don't want to say it, because if we get censored.
Jeffrey Epstein, I don't care.
Well, because like the Epstein
Censor
files
me.
and stuff were being released as of like now. It's kind of like the big hot topic and stuff right now, and it's really interesting to me how conservatives like don't care, but then like this is like an entire, like I think the FBI found today, which obviously the FBI is like a Republican led thing right now, like they declared that Jeffrey Epstein was not illegally trafficking young girls or women at all.
Isn't that interesting? Because a lot of people have misconceptions about human trafficking. They don't realize that the majority of human trafficking cases, I know I've talked about this before, is labor trafficking.
Yes.
And those are adults from another country that will be kind of convinced that like, okay, you can come here and work on a visa and do all these things. And they're legal, it's legal, but then they end up becoming like enslaved by these people. And they're like, okay, well, we're going to call ICE.
There's one you were talking about specifically that I think you said there were like people, I remember it was some book you read where they came from. Was it India?
Yes. Off the top of my head, where is it? What is it called?
And it was discussing like about these people that were obviously tricked to come here in the United States. They're like, hey, you can have a great life and stuff like that. And then they ended up getting underpaid and they did not follow through what they said they were going to. But then these people didn't have a choice because they were like, hey, yeah, we'll just revoke your
Yes,
visa
it's
and
called
you'll
the the
get clipped.
Sackett. It's the Great Escape by Sackett Sony. He was part of the campaign with them trying to like get rights, and it's crazy. You should learn it up on that. But also, if you read the book Revolting Prostitutes, um, they also talked about human trafficking and how often human trafficking can be it misconstrued to mean that somebody who is a sex worker is transporting themselves and maybe a friend across straight borders. That can be considered human trafficking in some cases, but also like you could be groomed by a boyfriend who you don't realize will end up like, oh, I need you to do this with my friend or whatever, and then they ended up getting like pimped out, and that's like how people get kind of like sold into it. But sometimes they're adults, like they're 18,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe they're young,
Older.
just on the verge, and they wait until they're 18, and then it's like, oh, well, they're just a prostitute, and then they're
It's not,
subjected to like
yeah.
whorephobia, and then it's not, nobody thinks about it that way. I think like Cynthia Brown? She was the woman. She's a woman now, but she was trafficked, and then she killed her captor, and she went to jail or
Oh,
prison for killing him. And Kim
that's
Kardashian
crazy.
was like working on her case. Yeah, it was a big deal, but I do think like I don't know where we're going with this.
No.
Sorry.
Well, yeah, that's a little off tangent.
Sorry. Because
But
we're talking about
yeah.
trafficking and like grooming and stuff, and it's like relevant with like Epstein file, like all of this, like just ge- generic sexual exploitation, and obviously like the demographic of like these girls in the Epstein files and whatnot, like regardless of their age. I think we should acknowledge that like capitalism and patriarchy play a really big
Yes.
role in these things, and I think that's kind of where we're trying to circle back and talk about like that sort of socialization and how the economic ruling class, like there is a power dynamic which is
Yes.
present. It's very very present in this book, and I think she does a really good job of laying it out.
Well, because there is a pretty good class dynamic within this as well, because we have Waldo and her perspective, and she is obviously from a lower class. She talks about her mother is always like bagging groceries, working at gas stations. She doesn't necessarily hold a stable job very often either, because obviously you learn later in the book that she did have problematic relations with her own parents growing up, and how they didn't necessarily raise her 100% well. And so then she ends up craving it through male validation through other people and stuff like that. Versus you have Mr. Corgi. Is that his name? Corgi?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Corgi. We're calling Corgi. I think it's Corgi, like the dog,
I,
but it's like
yeah,
Korgy.
yes. Um, but like, and then his, like, he is not necessarily, like, we don't know too much of his background in that sense, but we know that his wife is very wealthy and that her family's very wealthy. So then they have like this beautiful, like, suburban house with the nice big yard and the nice big dining room and all that stuff, which is just such a different, like, class understanding within that. And I do think Jeanette McCurdy could have discussed that more, like, made it more of an information, but you can see it quite clearly whenever you have them like going to restaurants together and Mr. Corgi is like talking about all these fancy foods and stuff like that, versus um Waldo just only consuming processed food or like frozen foods and stuff like that. And the way that like poor people are forced to eat junk food all the time because it's affordable to get a well balanced meal, versus someone who's in the higher class who can afford like this fancy meal that even like their Gwen, his Mr. Corgi's wife, makes for her. I
Yeah,
think that's just
she does a
interesting.
really good job because like also Waldo is working. She's going to school and she has to work, right? Because her mom is not reliable with finances, so sometimes Waldo has to pay the bills. And this is not something that the teacher really gets. I don't think
Yeah.
he really like understands the dynamic until like well, obviously like Waldo has like this Mormon friend, random
Yes.
Mormon friend. I do feel like it was a seemingly random choice to have like this friend that's Mormon that has like these really like
The way she
pure
would talk.
pure take a shot every time we to say like puritanical views, but she
Yeah.
is Mormon, and the way she talks, and she can't really like talk to her about all of her issues because she'll just go rat on her because she's
She's just
a
going
Mormon
against
girl, which is
God.
interesting because like there is like this parallel between like Mormonism It's so interesting because we just talked about Mormonism in the
I
last
know, I was
episode,
thinking that
but
too.
Mormonism
If I had a
and
nickel
like
for every
how
time literary liberation talked about Mormonism, I'd have 2 nickels.
which is not a lot, but
Again, and we still did not do any more research on Mormonism. So
I should have thought to do that, but I completely forgot there's like the whole Mormon element where like young Mormon girls, I mean, you see like the videos on TikTok where they're like, oh, you're dating for 4 months and you're not engaged yet because the only way they can have like sex is if they get married. So like, I do think you can kind of see that with her like boyfriend that she's courting, is that she's gonna lock it down. She's got like a 5-year plan. She's like, we're gonna get married and then we're gonna have all these kids and all of this whatever. And Waldo's like, girl, you're 17 years old. What are you talking about? But meanwhile, Waldo is kind of being like a hypocrite in a way. But it's going in the opposite direction where she's kind of, I would consider it like a form of like self-harm. Like she's so
it's self-sabotage 100%.
She is spending all of her money on like all of like the really trendy things, like the clothes, like the Shein hauls that she's buying, just so she can get like the hit that she needs, the anti-aging.
The dopamine high.
She's got all of the products, which I do think is very prominent in my own real life with the people I know that like live in poverty and whatnot. Like these are tangible things that you can have because like sure, you may not be able to have like a really nice house and all that, but you can like make yourself look a certain way.
You can spend $20 on a cream.
Exactly. I may not be able to spend like $4,000 a month for like a mortgage or something crazy, but I can buy like, I don't know,
$50
some
tube of mascara,
water cream or whatever. Yeah. So, and that's Waldo, like her character, the way that Jeanette McCurdy constructs her and talks about like consumerism, I thought is such an interesting thing because, what was it, like a year ago? Maybe there was a lot of controversy surrounding like the Sephora kids. A lot of like
the drunk
very
elephant
young tweens, the drunk elephant, like the little girls.
What's crazy is I didn't even know what drunk elephant was until that
I know because you were not a 2016 makeup
I'm not
person,
a beauty
so
guru.
you did not hear those. Not part of that. It's crazy. They're very, very expensive. I remember hearing like these beauty content creators making like talking about like these different things that they were using, and I looked them up on the website and I was like, what the fuck?
Well, it's like
and you barely get any product. So I was like, oh, I can't do that. That's not me.
Well, it's like the adultification of young girls too, where we have this like hyper consumerism of like anti-age. Like you're already old. You already need to focus on anti-aging whenever you're 12 years old. Like 1, no, you don't. 2, but like that's the way that we view society on why like we're aging up these young girls so quickly. And then even like the way that Waldo thinks that like at the beginning of this quote, I'm saying relationship in quotation marks, of her with Mr. Corey and her pursuing it, and like she's like, oh, I'm the one that's starting it. That's very adamant in the beginning that she thinks in her own mind that she's the one in control, she's the one doing this. And of course she's reassured by that by Mr. Corey saying, oh, we can stop whenever you want, this is what you want, sort of thing. But whenever we realize that like it's more of like society implementing how, one, she's probably been working as soon as she was 16 because she had to grow up to help pay her mom's bills. And then we also have like the way that she works in Victoria's Secret too, which is like the way that's like it's like lingerie and like fancy bras and panties and stuff. And then having a teenager work there, that's like again like more adult things, you know, with like the way that sex and stuff is viewed. And it's just like the way that like society is adultifying these young girls makes it see like you can see why Waldo makes these choices, like thinking that like, oh, Mr. Corgi is going to be one, and why she's objectively like bored with all of the guys in her school, you know, because she views like being an adult, she sees Mr. Corgi, he's got his life together, he's happy, you know, happy, quote unquote. You know, but
it kind of plays back into this age-old dynamic where this is going to pertain to just like white European women and like settlers, because this is not something that was present in like different societies, but that our economic status is directly linked to who you are marrying. And I think it's in Kristen Goadsey's Why Women Have Better Sex Under Socialism. She talks about sexual economic theory and how, like, under a capitalist society, women tend to withhold having sex because, one, there's a higher risk because there's no birth control. Often it's very, like, you don't have access to abortion, you don't have all of these things. So you sell your sex, in a sense, to the highest bidder, which is going to be somebody who's in a more economically stable situation, which in Jeanette McCurdy's mind, because she's coming from a place of poverty, she's like, why would I be like messing with boys my age who can't take care of me when I can go after somebody who is kind of like stable and situated? Whereas in like a communist society, or as Kristen Gossey says, I think she calls it state socialism, it was a lot more egalitarian, and men were complaining about it after the revolution because they're like, I can't just use my money to woe women and like
Yeah, they're like, I actually have the personality now.
I actually have to try hard to like be like like it, because everything is a little bit more equal when you have like these things that are accessible. And I think even in despite it being a work of fiction, The Dispossessed by Ursula K. Le Guin, even though it's like a fake society, an anarchist society, you can kind of see like theoretically, like we have a real world application and also like a fantastical application where like things are just like more egalitarian when like you do away with like the oppressive systems. And Waldo's situation is just so like, you can like see it so glaringly if you've done the reading and done the tag, or not, Jesus, if you've read the text, you've done the reading, you can kind of like see these things. And I hope people have this sort of extraction from this book. Whereas like in My Dark Vanessa, it's very centered around like victimhood and like Me Too, like what constitutes making somebody a victim, and then also this movement. Whereas this one is more on
The self.
a smaller level, like it's very small scale. Whereas I feel like My Dark Vanessa is a lot more big picture. I don't know if you feel the same.
I can definitely see that, where that's why I was saying with too, how this is almost like a precursor to My Dark Vanessa, because it really like brings it home for people, which if you don't have a lot of experience with like grooming necessarily, like besides like cultural understanding, because the most frustrating thing about like this too is that it's almost so normalized now. Like we don't know somebody who hasn't been groomed, or like how many women that you know, or girls like your age that you know, that have like, especially with the age of the internet at the time, like in middle school and high school, talking to random men on the internet. I mean, how many times where you'd go on the Omegle with your friends and stuff, and then there would just be some creepy old dude with his wiener out for everyone to see, you know? And that's just like normalized in society, where it's just like, ha ha ha, you know, rather than, I don't know, talking about what it is, assault.
I think a lot of people, I would hope that when they read this and they are seeing what's happening to all of the characters around them, and even like with Jeanette McCurdy's, like, not Jeanette McCurdy, oh my god, sorry, in my head they're the same. Waldo and Jeanette McCurdy are the same
I
person.
think she is
I'm sorry.
written, she's written to be, I mean, she's got like the blonde curly hair that's referenced all throughout. I do think it's like semi-autobiographical. Like, you can tell Jeanette McCurdy put herself, where I almost feel like maybe like Waldo's a more bold version of her, because I feel like Jeanette McCurdy, the way she talks about herself and like I'm glad my mom died, she seemed very reserved and like to herself more, and like shyer, versus like Waldo is very like bold and more out there.
I can see that.
But I don't know, it was really interesting. This is an interesting read, and I do think this is one that is good to read with other people too. Get your girlfriends together. Like, what's the Blake Lively thing she did for like the Colleen Hoover domestic violence movie? Put on your florals and read this book together.
That's right.
That's like this book.
Oh my god,
that's what
I forgot.
Should do.
Yeah.
But like that, but like not like cringe, you know? Like, it is a great, I think it's an important discussion that should be surrounding this, that I don't think does, or like in general. Like, this is definitely a topic that I think like society does not, like society does shy away from in general. It's like don't ask, don't tell sort of situation, you know? Like people don't want to hear about this. They don't like to grapple with the harsh reality that this is something that a lot of women face every day with grooming and assault from men and the way that men act around women. And the way that like Corky is presented in this, how he's like painted as such a victim in like so many ways. You know, like he
I
like
know,
is
but at the end, like, he's such a fucking loser. At the end of the day,
yes,
like,
no, literally.
he's like, I made the mistake of getting married too young, and I didn't even get a chance to live my life because I just did what people like. I get that, but like, you're harming
So you
a
talk so
teenager,
you yeah. So you harass a child? Okay. And then how does
and I
that
get
fix
it.
anything?
I'm not going to be carceral. I'm not going to be carceral. I know I'm supposed to embrace a transformative justice framework for the purposes of liberation. However, throw this man in fucking jail. I don't know, or have him face the wall. I don't have time. We don't have time. Fascism is here. I don't fucking care. I don't want to re-educate. Like, gulag. Straight to the fucking gulag.
Yeah, the gulag is definitely where that means needs to go. Well, because like that's the thing too, though. It's just like the way that he's just so like I'm the victim in this whole situation. Waldo has all the control. It's just so interesting to me because I feel
You have the
like
control over me. Because that's like manipulation. Babes, you're
yes,
being manipulated.
that's the thing. And then the way that you could just see like it's like the way that Waldo describes this man too as being so like grotesquely disgusting too. And then she's just like, "But I want him so bad." I'm like, "This makes me sick." It's one of those books that you read and you're like sick to your stomach reading it
There's
because it's
also like
disturbing.
I don't even know if there's probably like a psychology term for this of like where you want something and then as soon as you have it,
You don't want it
you're like,
anymore.
ooh, I don't think I want it anymore. And I don't know what that is, but
I do
it's
know what you mean.
done really effectively in this because I was talking to one of my wonderful friends and Kristen's friends, Red, the
Oh,
community organizer in the state of Ohio. Loved this, by the way. I was getting live updates and voice chats with what was happening. Mind you, Red was making her husband listen to it as an audiobook. It was like screaming. I was like, love that for you. But Red really enjoyed how they talked about like that concept and then also the mommy issues because I think the mommy issues
mm.
it was done really well. And Kristen, you've talked about mommy issues before on here a couple of times.
Well, yes, but I don't
How
know
does
if
it make you feel?
I don't think like me and Waldo don't necessarily have a one-to-one relationship with like the same that our mothers do because I do think with the way I feel a lot more sympathy for Waldo's mother than I do for my own mother, which whatever have you. I do think Waldo's mother, I do see a lot of like there are some similarities, of course, because I do think we live again here we are talking about like the patriarchal society and why like Waldo's mother craves male validation so much. That's like her entire like that's Waldo's mother's arc all throughout this and how she claims male validation and how you don't like how she doesn't view herself as whole as a woman without having this male validation, which is really it's frustrating to read about because you can see it in so many like my mom's been married 3 times. So, you know, like it's kind of like on the same field where I could see that where it's like you don't need to be in a relationship with a man. I'm all women. This is at all women. You don't need to be in a relationship with a man or anybody to be that doesn't make you more or less of a woman, you know? And I think it's so interesting how that shapes society so much is how women's value is their proximity to a man.
It is interesting, and I do see it. People are moving away from that with like millennials and Gen Z. I hope Gen
Yes.
Alpha keeps up the same thing where like your value is not attributed to your relationship status. Whereas I know before, with like Gen X, and like boomers and shit, like you getting married was like the goal. Like you wanted to get married, have a house, all of that. Like it's just, but times have changed. We're realizing that maybe like divorce rates, we should look at those and understand like why that is. People don't actually want to be in a marriage with somebody that they fucking hate. And I see
Yeah.
it real time with the people. Like, obviously, I'm not going to violate HIPAA, but I've worked around a lot of like senior citizens. There's a lot of people who are married. And I do think, like, with people, even like my own family, you can kind of tell when people who have been together for like 50, 60 years, they never liked each other. They just stay together because they got married. And sometimes they get divorced and then they like have a glow up, but that very seldom happens with the older generations. And I think that millennials and Gen Zs have like moved away from that, and it makes me happy. It
Well, I
is a
think
move. It's a benefit for liberal feminism, and I appreciate it. It's not going to bring liberation, but I do like I
well
do
because
like to see it.
a lot of the times too, like women were not allowed to have their own credit cards until like the 1970s and stuff like that. So you see a lot of the reason why, like boomers specifically, um why they married so young and stuff, because you had no sense of freedom. You were stuck under your parents. There was not a lot of actual liberation for like a woman in like the 80s and 90s, and obviously we have like the first wave like feminist movement and stuff throughout there. And so like women do have a lot more economic freedom and things like under where we are now, but again, it could be so much more if we actually had not capitalism around. And I think like I wish like women specifically, like I think women are could be like the best people to convert to be communists, just because if they fully understood what's going on, because it's all of people's critiques, like women specifically critiques about like capitalism and like the patriarchy, and they realize that like women are like not at the same equality level as men in so many different ways, whether it's the workplace and stuff like that. And they're just like, I just wish like if you had like an ounce of class consciousness and an ounce of understanding, that like breaking the glass ceiling and be like getting the same position as a man, that is not going to reach the full liberation for you and your granddaughters that will come after you, right? A full communist society is what will liberate us all, you know?
Yeah, it's because like one, like the capitalist society has socialized people to view things very like individualistic.
Mm-hmm.
So we have this like false dichotomy that has kind of formed with the kind of reactionary feminism where people are just like, actually no, we don't need the right to vote and we should just be stay-at-home moms. And then we have the other side of the coin, which is the liberals like break the glass ceiling and create generational wealth by exploiting other people so that I can benefit myself and my family. But they don't realize is it doesn't have to be like binary like that. There's a third option.
Yeah. The secret third option.
There's a secret third option, and that's becoming a Marxist feminist and
Yes.
it's seeking like total revolution. Like it's fantastic. Isn't that incredible? You should read Alexandra Kollontai
Why
or
women have
Sylvia
better sex.
Federici.
Under Socialism is a great read too, like we already discussed with Kristen Godsey too. Like that is one book that I wish like every like woman would read.
Yeah, like despite my criticisms, like it's not a perfect
It's not a
book. Like once
perfect
you
book.
get into it, it's not a but it
It's
gets
a
you
great
thinking.
introduction. It's a perfect
The
introduction, I
title
think.
is so good.
Yeah.
It's such a good catching title. The cover of it, beautiful, stunning. The way it's written, fantastic. And it really like pokes holes into what we already know about like the Red Scare. Like it starts to undo. It's like the process of undoing that. And again, I have my criticisms of it, but I always recommend it because despite like what I say, I think it's such a good starting point.
It's a great beginner text.
See.
And that's one thing, like, I wish, like, I can tell, like, I do think that Jeanette McCurdy is a liberal at worst, a democratic socialist at best. Again, because she has not stated any, like, political thoughts necessarily. I haven't really seen anything specifically. I don't know why you were doing any research. She's really talked a lot politically.
She wittily liked my video on Instagram, so that means that she's a Marxist feminist.
She probably doesn't even use her own Instagram. She probably has like a social media intern or something.
In my head canon, I'm like, no, like I am like zapping my brainwaves to you, Jeanette. Please, I'm looking you in the eyes, Jeanette. Please,
she's got the Erica
me. We
Kirk
can read
stare.
Rosa Luxemburg.
But I do think that I just think with so much more education, like within like the Marxist feminist realm, like I think that would be like our 5-star read, because like My Dark Vanessa was not a 5-star read for us. This is not a 5-star read for us. It's still really good, but I think like once you get that like Marxist perspective into it, then we'll gobble it up. You
We're
know,
on the hunt. We're so close. I feel like we are so close to,
which I
and I'm
think with
looking for like a
this,
6-star rate. I'm not going to settle for any less because these are great. I think My Dark Vanessa I gave like 4.25. I gave this 4
mm-hmm,
even. They're
that's
great.
about
I
what I
love
was.
them. I recommend them. But I'm missing the special sauce, and that is like an actual class analysis, and I want them to actually talk about
But
capitalism without it just being like, oh, it's capitalism, but we just need to reform it or something. And I'm not saying that happened in this book, but I this is what I'm yearning for. This is what I'm manifesting for
no, because I
2027.
I do think this does introduce like those concepts too. Again, there is like a class discussion in there, especially with like Waldo. One, she's not a super school focused kid in the first place, and she's kind of is rebelling against Mr. Corgi's idea of like going to college,
Which is
sort
so
of
different
as
than in My
yeah.
Dark Vanessa, because My Dark Vanessa is taking place at like a preparatory school,
Mm-hmm.
which nobody can fucking afford that. Like that's like the biggest dynamic is like she got a scholarship in My Dark Vanessa to go to like this all girls boarding school,
Yeah,
and
but
it like
that's not
preps you
really
for college and like sets you up, but that's like a very millennial thing because a lot of Gen Z are not going and getting a 4-year degree. They're doing like trade programs, or they're just like
working.
they're just doing things. They're just working.
Yeah. Which I mean, like, and I do think that this is, it just doesn't go far enough, I think is the main issue with it. Is that it's like, it's there, but it's like totally, it's at the bottom of the step. Like, you need to start walking up the steps, y'all, to get into there. And you want to know, like, again, with like this, and then like, with this book and My Dark Vanessa, it is specifically like the English teachers preying on the students as well, which I just find so interesting that that is one of the like, I think that like, because there's also, is there not a movie too where there's like an English teacher preying on in like Pretty Little Liars? I think that guy is the English teacher preying on her in the Pretty Little Liars show. I don't know how much you watch that. But I just feel like I think it's really interesting that it's always English teachers. Is that not interesting to you?
Looking it up to see if I can find any.
The movie. I know Pretty Little Liars. I'm pretty sure that dude was
There's
the
a
English
movie
teacher.
called A Teacher that came out in 2013.
The teacher, the book by Frida McFadden, it's an English teacher as well.
I'm trying to see if there's anything else. There's one that's called Liberal Arts.
What?
Liberal arts is when a 30-something Jesse returns to his alma mater for professor's retirement. He falls for Zibby, a college student, is faced with a powerful attraction that springs up between them. I don't know. I can't find anything specifically. It
Okay,
kind
well,
of,
the Pretty Little
dare I
Liars is
say,
also
it's
an
like
English teacher.
the whole like performative male, like, oh, I'm reading all these books to seem.
You think that's what it is?
Maybe.
I don't know,
It's the
because I just think
prototype.
it's so interesting that it's always English teacher. Like, it's never a math teacher being a predator or a science teacher. Like, biology's right there. They're staying after school for some biology class, am I right?
I would. Okay. Here, hold on. Is it because STEM is predominantly like a male dominated industry or field, so like the majority of the time like the teachers are going to be men, but also like the students that are going to do well on average or like pursue those types of careers are going to be men, whereas like the liberal arts it's typically like women that are teaching, and so like to have like a man that's an English teacher I guess maybe more
Is
rare.
rare.
This is I'm not, I don't have any stats in front of me. I didn't prepare for this.
Sorry, I just thought it was an interesting,
that's my
like,
theory.
I don't know. I thought it was interesting, like, just like a weird coincidence. I don't know if that's coincidence or like completely intentional.
A little quinky dink. I know. As soon as I saw that though, that's where like I was like, this is literally My Dark Vanessa for Gen
But like,
Z.
it's really interesting to me that that's like one of the main like threads throughout all of these. Like, whenever the teacher is preying on their student, it's always an English teacher, and I do wonder why that is specifically. Because I'm
Well, that's
sure
because Frida McFadden plagiarized.
Well, I know
like,
Free McFadden did. Well, Pretty Little Liars, that's a TV show example, but the English teacher is preying on the student again. It's just interesting to me that that's like one of the overarching things, which I'd be interested to see if there's like more or less. I mean, I'm sure somebody's math teacher can be just as predatory. You know? Like, what difference does it make?
If you know, leave it down in the comments below, because we don't have a,
No.
I don't know.
I just thought that was
I have no idea why that is. I do think about that. There's got to be a reason for it, and somebody out there,
they've analyzed it. They've analyzed it. They know. I guess, do we really have anything else to discuss?
I don't think so. I think we covered the majority of the content of this book. I am very pleased with our ability to extract and yap, mainly because I haven't had an opportunity to talk to anybody about this book, so this is like my first time really like getting all my thoughts out there.
Yeah.
So this was good. This was fun. If anyone has any books that are similar, maybe in the future we will review Lolita. I think it's bound to happen at some points whenever we're feeling froggy and we want to read a classic.
I just think it's hard because, like, we were already discussing too, like with this one, we're like, I don't know what we're gonna talk about because it's a lot of overlap with like My Dark Vanessa, and that's one thing like within this literature, like this specific. I don't know if this is like a genre, like what would you call it? Subgenre
of literary fiction.
No, like the grooming aspect, like books. Like we end up like I feel like we end up repeating ourselves in different ways because like
it's very difficult. So if there's another one that ends up coming out, it's gonna have to be really special for us to review. So this will probably be one of our last ones. I do think we should try to seek out. Did you consider that this is like young women's fiction? In my opinion, I think this is literary fiction. I think it has
literary fiction,
feminist element. And I'm very curious what the future will hold. I have some ideas maybe for some other like fiction like this, specifically one that I just read recently that I think is going to be a good one. I just have to corral Kristen into reading it. But our next book that we are reviewing, completely change of pace. We've been reading a lot of interesting books starting this year. It's very early on, but our books have been
another new release too.
Yes. Oh, and I'm so excited. I almost got it today. Early, but I didn't get it. So it's Operation Bounce House by Matt Dinniman. And I'm excited to talk about the drama and
that's going on. Yeah. Drama on the Reddit. But yeah, so Matt Dinniman, we love you. It's okay you didn't send us an arc, but I'm expecting for your next, maybe not the next Carl. I imagine there probably won't be many arcs of that, but your next solo book, email us at literaryliberation1@gmail.com and send us the EPUB file for the arc. Thank you for whatever else you're publishing next, even if it's just your grocery list. I'll take that too. And then also with our book club this month, we're reading Kindred by Octavia Butler over there on Fable. So that's linked below if you want to join with us and read along with us that book.
That's pretty much it. We're just reviewing books this month. We haven't had a month like that where we review things. No minis. Back.
Yeah.
No minis. If you have any
mini ideas.
Topics, we call them minis, but they're like an hour long yap sessions. We are always on the hunt for more topics to discuss, or people just want opinions. Our thoughts on things.
Yeah, general thoughts and opinions. Other than that, thank you for listening. If you're on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that bell if you want notifications. We post every single Thursday. Other than that, I think that's really it. So thank you and good night.